We often see people pulled up online for an old tweet that contradicts their current position. And rather than celebrate that that person has learned something and has changed their opinion, it is used as a massive pile-on to cancel them. Exactly. How do you feel about that? And is there anything your 20-year-old self would have tweeted that you wouldn't agree with now? I'm sure. I can't think of anything. Although I'd probably be embarrassed by my 20-year-old self trying to be so right on, because that's what most 20-year-olds are, they're trying to be. So I'd probably cringe getting it slightly wrong.
Ricky Gervais didn't hold back as he tore into Keir Starmer's vision for Britain, describing it as a dystopian leap towards socialism. In true Gervais fashion, he delivered sharp criticism, accusing the Labour leader of pushing policies that risk turning the country into a nanny state. With his signature wit, Gervais mocked Starmer's approach to policing speech, suppressing dissent, and enforcing rigid economic controls, warning that such moves could erode personal freedoms and create a dull, overly bureaucratic society. If Starmer's Britain is the future, Gervais joked, we might as well dust off ration books and start practicing collective farming now. His critique was so biting, even Lenin might have felt a little embarrassed.
Don't forget, that sort of is purely people saying, look how good I must be. If I'm bringing someone down, if I'm cancelling someone because the tiniest thing they did 10 years ago, think how perfect I must be. That's what they're trying to say. They're trying to get one-upmanship to make themselves look better. So, yeah, it's to be ignored. And you're exactly right. If there's no value in changing and saying sorry, don't bother then. It's ludicrous. You're exactly right. People, if you find something that people was 10 years ago and now they're not, you're right, that should be applauded because they've changed for the better. But it's just people on each other to make themselves look better. Best thing is just ignore it. Just ignore it. That's what these people, they want attention. They don't care what it is. It's like these people who go on any march to windows. They don't care about the cause. It's that 5% that brings all good ideas are eventually infiltrated and ruined by a minority. The troll.
Gervais would likely roast Keir Starmer's leadership as a prime example of hypocrisy and double standards. Gervais might highlight Starmer's tendency to hold others accountable for past mistakes while skillfully sidestepping scrutiny of his own record. By avoiding an honest reckoning with Labour's historical missteps, Starmer undermines his credibility as a leader. With his sharp wit, Gervais could mock Starmer's self-proclaimed moral authority, pointing out how the Labour leader fails to embody the very growth and accountability he demands from others. This selective approach to responsibility, Gervais might argue, creates inconsistency and erodes public trust. Known for criticizing performative gestures, Gervais would likely call out Starmer's reliance on virtue signaling, from his embrace of cancel culture to hollow symbolic actions, saying it's more about appearances than real change. He might humorously compare Starmer's approach to rearranging deck chairs on the Titanic, futile and disconnected from the real challenges Britain faces. Starmer's reluctance to offer a clear vision for Labour or acknowledge its flaws, Gervais might quip, limits his ability to position himself as a force for genuine change. Instead, his leadership risks solidifying the perception of Labour as out of touch with ordinary voters. Gervais could also poke fun at Starmer's failure to admit his own flaws, contrasting it with his apparent expectation of perfection from everyone else. The divide between the hardworking majority and vocal minorities would be another target for Gervais. Starmer's focus on pandering to the loudest voices, rather than addressing the practical concerns of everyday Britons, risks alienating those who prioritize real solutions over ideological posturing. Gervais might parody Starmer's attempts to please everyone, calling it a facade of unity that ignores the frustrations of the silent majority. While Gervais often advises ignoring attention seekers, Starmer seems fixated on managing them, leaving him looking more like a trend follower than a visionary leader. Gervais might even liken Starmer's approach to trying to reason with internet trolls, a never-ending cycle of appeasement that achieves nothing. For Gervais, true leadership is about confronting tough realities and driving meaningful change, not pandering to fleeting trends or relying on empty gestures. Starmer's apparent dependence on mob approval, Gervais might warn, stifles innovation and risks plunging the country into cultural stagnation. In Gervais's eyes, leadership should be about accountability and bold action, not superficial performances and reactive policies.
Petition to hold a fresh general election has attracted 1.6 million signatures so rapidly.
I'm not sure you'd have to ask the petitioners, but look, things are difficult. I make no bones about the fact that we will have to make difficult decisions, and some people won't like that. I didn't come into politics to please everybody all the time. I came into it to crack on. And look, it's early days. We've been in power for 4 months, and nobody would want to see a petition like this, I can grant you, although we did just have a general election. But the reality is I would say after a year, 2 years, there is a huge amount of mess to clean up, and I think that people are just...
The 1.6 million signatures on this petition are not just a passing note. They're a loud and clear statement of public dissatisfaction with the current political landscape. This isn't the work of a small fringe group. It's a mass movement reflecting widespread frustration and a strong demand for change. Yet Jess Phillips's dismissive response, "I'm not sure," you'd have to ask the petitioners, highlights a troubling lack of engagement with the very concerns fueling this groundswell. This response reveals a clear disconnect between political leaders and the people they represent. Instead of seizing the moment to acknowledge public frustration and offer tangible solutions, Phillips deflected, giving the impression of indifference, or worse, a failure to grasp the seriousness of the issue. Such tone-deaf reactions only deepen the public's perception that political elites are out of touch with everyday life, further eroding trust in leadership and institutions. A petition of this size is a powerful indicator of unrest, often surfacing during times of significant political dissatisfaction. Recent history, such as the Brexit movement, shows how large-scale petitions can act as catalysts for major reform. This latest petition signals a similar sentiment: growing frustration with government incompetence, a lack of accountability, and broken promises. Phillips's failure to respond with insight or empathy risks alienating voters Labour hopes to win over. Politicians who recognize these moments as opportunities to connect, even if they disagree with the demands, can earn respect by simply listening. Unfortunately, Phillips missed this chance, reinforcing the narrative that leaders are detached from the public's concerns. The success of this petition highlights deeper issues within politics, where both the government and opposition are seen as unresponsive and disconnected. Movements like this gain traction when people feel ignored, and Phillips's dismissive approach only adds fuel to the fire. In the end, her handling of this situation underscores the risks for politicians who fail to engage meaningfully with a frustrated electorate. This petition is a clear sign of discontent, and ignoring it only widens the gap between leaders and the people they serve, feeding public cynicism and unrest. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to join our free Telegram group, linked in the description, for